Hi everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you for joining us today. As you join, please share your name, where you're joining us from, and in the chat. And as you wait for others to join, you can just say hi to others in the chat as well. We'll be starting very shortly. Some things to note during the duration of the session is one, you can use the chat to speak to anyone on our team about anything. And during the Q&A section, you can also use the questions tab to share any questions you have as well. So let's wait a bit for others to join, then we can start proper. As I said before, please introduce yourself in the chat. You can maybe share what you're building as well with us or what you do currently, and we'll wait for others to join. So let's give it 5 more minutes and we would start. Please remember to share your name, where you're joining us from, or what you're doing, or what you're currently building. If you're building something exciting, if you'd like to know, please use the chat. So let's give it 3 more minutes to start. I guess we should start now. We could start with introductions, but as I said, please don't forget to share your name, where you're joining us from, and what you do. My name is Martha Obike, and I'm the senior content marketer at Mono. We are having this webinar with Adedoyin Adesina, and who is our compliance lead at Mono, and Ewere Diagboya, our DevOps Lead. And at this webinar, we'll be sharing best practices for data and customer protection. As you know, data privacy is an important topic for both businesses and users. As a business, you have the responsibility to ensure that your users' data are protected and handled securely. And you, as a user as well, you also have the right for your data to be managed securely by the businesses you are sharing it with. So this webinar, we'll be learning best practices for protecting both your users and your business. And but before we get into that, we would like to share a brief introduction about Mono, because Mono is hosting this webinar, and this is in case someone is joining us and hasn't heard about Mono, or they're just hearing about Mono for the first time. So I'd like to share a brief intro about Mono. So Mono is a reliable open banking API infrastructure platform that allows you to securely access financial data or collect direct payments, which is like account to account payments, and also verify users' identity information. Next slide, please. Sorry about that. Give me a second. So I'm unable to see the slides from my own end. So give me a second to sort this out. Okay, I can see it now. Perfect. So at Mono, our mission is simple, really, to power the digital economy in Africa. And we started in 2020, and so far we have helped businesses or helped users link their accounts with the business to be able to like share their financial data. And so far we have 4.4 million plus linked accounts. And our investors include Y Combinator, Entry Capital, Tiger Global, and more. And to date, we have retrieved 668 million financial data. And this data can cut across things like the user's name, phone number, and details like that. So next slide, please. So we're having issues with the slides, and just give me a second to share from my own end, and we can continue. Sorry, I apologize about this. Just give me a second to sort this out. Okay, we are back. Sorry about that. Let's continue. Please go back to the previous slide. I guess we're having a little issues with the slides, but let me continue. So currently we have three major API suites at Mono. There is Mono Connect, which is what allows users to securely link their accounts to share their transactions, statements, income, or identity data with the business. Then we also have the Mono Direct Pay product, which is what allows users or your users to make cardless payments directly from their accounts. This works like on a account-to-account basis. Then finally, we have the monolookup product, which is what allows you with the consent of your users to look up and verify the identity information against what they have provided. And we currently serve businesses in the e-commerce, lending, digital verification industries, and more. And businesses who use Mono report up to 90% decrease in fraud attempts. This means that when they use products like Mono Connect or Lookup, for example, they are able to reduce the chances of fraud attempts. They can also like ensure that their KYC and KYB verification processes are secure, and you can easily identify suspicious signups. Then we've also noticed that businesses have reported up to 60% increase in onboarding completion. So, for example, if a user is signing up to a service and they are required to enter several data points to prove their identity or to be able to use that service, oftentimes when they enter those information, it takes like days for those information to be verified. And when that happens, the users tend to drop off. But with products like Monolookup or Connect, these users are able to securely share this information with the business, and they're able to also securely verify their information. And this also helps you as a business shorten your onboarding process while also making it secure and also converting people faster. Finally, we've also seen up to 40% decrease in non-performing loans. What this means is that, for example, businesses like lenders or credit providers have reported a decrease in non-performing loans. And non-performing loans here means like loans that customers don't repay back. So with the use of our products, these businesses are able to, one, get access to these users' transactions or their income data, and then they're able to identify their borrowing behavior, and they're able to check if this user has the capacity to repay this loan or not. And so these are like the ways that we have seen, or like the success stories we've seen from businesses that use Mono. Thank you. So for this part of the section, we'll be handing it over to Adedoyin so she can take us through some ways or best practices that you can implement to protect both your users and your business. Adedoyin, over to you.
Hi everyone, good evening. How are we doing today? My name is Adedoyin and I'm so happy to be here. So when we speak or when we say data privacy, the first thing that people typically think about is privacy policy or fines, or oh, I know that it's something that maybe one of the big techs have to deal with, but not necessarily me because I'm a small business. However, for us to better understand data privacy and the entire reason why we're here and having this discussion is for us to better understand the rights of our users, better understand how we as a business can protect those rights, how we can also protect our own infrastructure and our own processes such that when it comes to the protection of information that your customers have given to you or your own business data, you are well protected. So data privacy generally, it means data privacy and data protection are often used interchangeably, but data privacy on its own means that who has the access to my data. It defines very clearly when, how, and to what extent you're sharing your personal information with either businesses or regulators. While data regulation can be defined as like the tools, the policies, the regulations that define the relationship between data subjects, which are your customers or your end users, and you as a service provider. So when we speak on the common data privacy regulations across Africa, we are trying not to make this too, want it to be as actionable as possible, but it's good to touch on this. So when we speak on the regulations that we have across Africa, across markets like Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa, which are also all countries that Mono has a presence in, we'll talk about the the data privacy and the data protection regulation or the requirement. They're quite similar, which is one of the great things that have come out of Africa in recent times. Our regulations sometimes, not only data privacy, but almost across the whole board, there might be peculiarities that relates to your country, but there tends to be like a similarity, which would help you as a business better adapt. If you are compliant in, let's say, Nigeria and Ghana, then you're likely to be more compliant if you were to scale to a different country. So when we speak on some of the requirements that we have as a business, or some of the obligations that we have, the first thing would be the data retention. So all four countries, be it Kenya or Nigeria, they all require you as a business to not keep the information, the personal information of your customers for any period longer than necessary. So once your business relationship with your customers have ended, they expect that the information that you collect on your customers, they start to get a little bit dialed down, and it's only the essential ones, maybe the ones that you have to submit to your regulators. Also, the individual rights of your customers. So all of the African market and all of the African market regulators, generally as an end user or as a data subject, you have rights, and all of the rights are similar. So you have the right of access, which we'll discuss later. You have the right to rectify any inaccuracies and the right to request for erasure or deletion of your data, and then security measures. As a business, not only you cannot find a hiding space in any of these countries. So whether you're in Nigeria or any of the countries that we've mentioned, you're obligated to implement top-notch security measures to protect the personal information of your customers. So you have to protect them from unauthorized access, unauthorized disclosure, alteration, or destruction of your customers' information. I know it seems like, oh, so I have to delete it, but I also have to protect it. Yes. So all through the life cycle of your relationship with your customers, all through the time that you're receiving information from them, you are to make sure that it is protected. And the only person that has a right to alter or request for rectification of that information is actually your customer. And then consent and transparency, we will speak more about this. And then finally, data protection officers. So if you are a business that has, there is a certain cache, I think about 2,000 customers or 2,000 users, you're obligated to have a data protection officer. So, but if you're a small company and you're still looking to scale, your compliance officer or your legal officer can double as your data protection officer, while you would have an external firm that would work as your DPCO. So that's a little bit about some of the data privacy regulations that we have across Africa. All right, so now let's get into the meat of the matter. So how do you implement data privacy regulation for your business and for your customers? Well, the best way for you to do that would be to better understand the rights that your customers have. So for brevity, we would be speaking on 4 of the rights, but there is a slew of rights that every end user, that every customer has. Well, the very first one would be the right to be informed. So when we speak on right to be informed, it typically means that you as a business have an obligation to ensure that your customers are aware of how their personal data is being processed, and you're obligated to share this information to them in a clear, transparent, and straightforward manner. So you are to try as much as possible to avoid legalese. You're to try as much as possible that you're not giving them generic information. So you're not just downloading, oh, this company is a similar company to mine, they have this privacy policy, let me download that and slap it on my own website. Your privacy policy has to be tailored to the services that you offer, the third parties that you have, and also how data is being processed. So if you were using a third party vendor to maybe process parts of their data, you have to inform your customers as to this information. Additionally, we have the right of access. So this right speaks to how your customers can come to you and say, oh, which information do you have about me and how do you process it? So it essentially allows individuals to obtain a clear confirmation from you as a business on whether their personal data is being processed, and if so, they want to have access to that data. So you typically, this is when it would be very helpful for you to have a clear process that deals with this type of request. So an example for you would be if maybe you had this a business and a business software, and or like maybe you're a SaaS, and one of your customers come to you and they're like, oh, I want to know, apart from my email, is there anything else that you guys, there's some customers that can be very panicky, and they're like, oh, paranoid, oh, why do you have this data about me? So they want to know or obtain a comprehensive report from you on all the personal data that you have of them. They're actually obligated to get that information from you. So it is now up to you to say, I cannot manually be granting every of these requests, and create a process. It could be in terms of like, oh, confirmation of account, and then you have a slew of all the information, maybe their name, their address, all the information that you have, how it is being used to provide them a service. So that's very clear. Also, the right of rectification of personal data. This is one of my personal faves because this right empowers individuals to request for, let's say there has been an inaccurate, maybe your middle name is your first name, or you get married and your name changes, or anything, or maybe your means of identification has expired and you want to rectify that or update the information that a business has of you. So it should be a seamless process. It shouldn't be like, oh, 20 steps of where I have to send an email and then I have to send another email. As a business, on your website or on your mobile app, on the dashboard that your customers are interacting with your service, in their profile app, their profile segment, there should be a place for them to update their personal information. Now, not all information should be allowed to be updated to prevent the instances of fraud. However, there's certain information that, from usage and from understanding the life cycle of your business, you should know that, okay, now it's time for maybe, or they are coming to you to say, and when you're at like a backing or change your name and says, oh, I've been married, you should maybe, or like your marriage certificate, or maybe a newspaper clipping that announces that you've changed your name. If a 37-year-old man should then come onto your platform and says, oh, I want to change my name, it shouldn't just be a free for all. You should have certain gaps in place to prevent fraud and to also protect the data of your customers. And then finally, the right to erasure or deletion. So this is the popular right. I think when it came out in the GDPR, everybody was quite excited about it. It's the right to be forgotten. So this is the right that allows individuals to request for the deletion or removal of their personal data from your platform. So back, I don't want to say back then, and it's 1990s, but earlier, before advancement in information technology, you could not, any business that had your information had it. You could die, your grandchildren could come on the platform, but they would always have your information. But we are seeing that people want to protect their information as much as possible and reduce because we see a lot of bad actors mine people's data. So if I use your service and I'm no longer using it, and I cannot foresee myself maybe in the next 10 years coming back and using that service, there are some services that are just once in a lifetime or once in a while. You can request for your data to be removed and deleted. So you as a business, understanding that your customers have a right to erasure, you should then have a process that seamlessly deals with that. You should always, and because this is a regulatory obligation, you should always ensure that that is like just straightforward. So rather than it be, oh, we don't know how this right would be done, it should be okay. Once somebody requests for their data, or even on your app, maybe there'll be a feature for delete your account, and then you take them to the process of, oh, once you delete your account, you have a 30-day grace for you to say, oh, you no longer want to delete your account, but once it's done, it's done. So those are a few of the rights that you as a business should know that your customers have, because this would enable you fulfill their request when the time comes. So we'll be speaking on another aspect that you as a business can use to protect or better understand, even you as a business, how you can create a process for yourself that would help you protect your customers' data, but would also help you from being like from your process or your services being disrupted by their own or negligence, or by them asking for certain things. And this is a concept called designing for privacy, or privacy by design. So there is a concept that encourages organizations, businesses, no matter how small, no matter how big, you might have been in existence for 10 years, you might be thinking of having your own business. However, or wherever you stand on the scale, you should always have at the back of your mind that the ideal approach when you are building a product, when you are building a service, when you're thinking of um, having a business that would obtain from its customers personal information, is to build from the beginning privacy features. So it's not just when you're big, or maybe it's an investor when you're trying to fundraise that would even ask you that, oh, so what are the privacy features that you have, and all you have is a privacy policy. So to avoid that from the ideation process, you should have features, you should have safeguards, and input them into the design and architecture of your process. That way, you would be building, setting yourself up for success, really, because from the beginning, your business would have all the features, all the safeguards to protect customers' data, such that as you're scaling, you're simply just scaling those features rather than, oh, how do we build these new features? How do we ensure that we have default settings? How do we ensure that our cookie management system is top notch? So, that's essentially what privacy by design is. And there are a few ways that you can integrate that into your company. And the very first one is default privacy settings. So by setting privacy and enhancing settings as the default, rather than um, you're collecting the maximum amount of data, and then, or maybe their privacy settings are not as high as it should be, and then it is the customers that are now saying, oh no, I want my privacy data to be as high. If the highest level of privacy is the default, then your customers have the right to say, okay, I want to give you more data, maybe because of how you've explained in very clear details why you'd be requesting for more data. But having the default privacy setting as the standard for your organization is setting you up for success, and it's one of the ways that you can implement privacy by design. And then another way that you can implement this is data minimization. I always say it, and I always advise businesses that, as a rule of thumb, you should only collect and process data that are strictly necessary for your service. There's no reason for you to be collecting information that is not needed for you to provide your customers this service. So by streamlining the information that you are receiving, you're also reducing the load or the amount of personal information that you have to protect. So data minimization is key. Data minimization is the rule of thumb. It's simple. Just think about it this way. If I only collect all I need, the amount of things I have to protect is also reduced. Fine. Another way that you can implement this is by doing impact assessment. So that's data protection impact assessment. Uh, when you so data, this is a way of, okay. Let's say I have a new product and I'm doing my market research. Same way that I do your market research, you're also thinking of how would this impact my obligations to my customers. How am I protecting the information that I would have to now ask. Let's say you have a wallet system, that's what you're operating. So prior to, let's say, CBN's regulation or CBK's regulation, depending on where you are operating or the market you're operating in, and their email. Now, their BVN, you have to ensure that that's a new thing that you have. So, oh, well, that's all I have to pass it and make sure that it's accurate. That's all I have to do. Well, that's not all you have to do. You have to think about it that now I'm a business that has access to other people's BVN, and think about it that, oh, there are ways in which fraudulent bad actors would want to get onto my system and have access to that BVN. So how do I create that safeguard for my business, ensuring that I am also not jeopardizing my own business data, my own reputation. At the same time, I'm not putting the people that have entrusted their financial information to me as a business in jeopardy. So having a way for you to assess all the risk and mitigating it from the beginning is much easier than when your product is out there in the market and then you're seeing all of these troubles. Also offer control. Give in this age, like, everybody is proactive, everybody is online, everybody is looking at TikTok, everybody is seeing what the fines that EU is like slapping on Facebook and slapping on TikTok. Everybody is aware that, oh, there's something that I have that these businesses want. So you as a business, you have to be proactive. You have to grant your the businesses that you the customers that you have to give them that control of, see, this is all the information I have of you. This is what I need. This is the for me to offer, for me to, yes, give you a seamless service. These are the information that I would need. However, just so that you're 100% clear, these are all the information that I have of you. You now have granular control of whether you want to give me permission, apart from the initial consent that you've granted me, knowing fully well that if you retract the control that you've given me, I might not be able to offer you a good experience as a customer. So, let them know that this is, like, be very clear and let them know that, okay, this is the information and this is why I have all of that information on you. And that is one of the tools that so an example of offering your customers control is Mono Portal. So Mono, as a company, we have a tool, and it's free, so you can also inform your customers about this. So by using Mono Portal, you come on there, you give them your information, you can see all the businesses that you've given control to. That way, when your customers can see that, oh, I gave control to, let's say, rent money when I requested for a facility from them, but I've paid up my loan, I've paid up the interest, I no longer have any business with rent money. Should I retain my information that is with rent money, or should I delete it? So allowing your customers to see very clearly the ways that, okay, this is the information, and now you can offer them and now they can retract the permission that they've given you. Let them trust you. Like, it gives them that level of trust that, oh, this is a company that cares about my my data and cares about me as a customer, not just like, oh, we are making money or we are in a mutually beneficial relationship. All right. So I'll be rounding up with a few actionable steps that you can use as a business for you to have good data privacy. And some of these things, we have even spoken about them before, so I would only be reiterating at this point. So the very first way that you as a business can offer to your customers clear information about everything that you're doing with their data is to have a very customer-friendly privacy policy from the beginning. It's not when you're updating it in the third year. From the very beginning, the minute you have a website, you have an obligation to give them not a generic one, a customer-centered privacy policy in clear English, not legalese, not some language that they would have to maybe Google what the word means, but very clear process. Oh, this is why I'm requesting your consent. This is the name of this company. This is why we are using your. This is the information that these are the information we'll be requesting from you. This is why I'll be requesting it from you. This is how I'll be processing it. If you have a complaint, this is where you can go. These are the channels that you can reach us through, like very clearly, so that they have that level of trust. Like, okay, I understand what this company is doing with my data. Also, establish access controls and advanced authentication measures. You want to protect that data as much as possible. Data fines are not a joke, not anywhere in Africa, especially not in Nigeria. Like the new Data Protection Bureau, they're not smiling with anybody. And I would pray that none of us would be on the other end of those fines. So it's best as early as possible to have access control. Not every member of your company needs to have access to your customer's BVN. So you have to kind of section who has access to what, and ensure that there is a log of how people are like at this time this person had access to this, so that you can clearly see who has access to this data, who is using this data, how are they using this data. And then integrate privacy impact assessment. I think I've spoken on this. Assess as early as possible. You don't want to be assessing postmortem. You want to, from the beginning of a project, kind of foresee, oh, like what are the risks? How can I mitigate them? How can I transfer them? This way you are setting yourself up for success. And then optimizing data collection process. Guys, I have to just be honest with you. Only, like, you don't need so much. Only what is necessary for you to give them the best service, and nothing more, nothing less. If at any point you need to, maybe you have a new product or a new service and you need more information, you can definitely reach out to your customers. But having that bulk of information, maybe for you to say, well, I just need a 360 view, sometimes just puts you in danger. And then finally, implementing robust and stress-tested encryption measures. If you have a messaging app on your as part of the services that you're offering, or a way for them to chat, or for customers to chat, ensure that it's end-to-end. You don't want a situation where people are, snooping into their conversation. And trust is very difficult to build as a business in Africa. That's just the truth. However, God forbid that trust is now broken. The measures, the money, the PR that you would have to pump into your business to regain that, a fraction of that trust back, is very costly. So from the beginning, let's not be penny wise and pound foolish. Let's from the beginning ensure that we are creating like top of the line encryption for our businesses, ensuring that you're protecting as much as possible. That way you don't have to fear that what happens if there's a leak or there's something that happens, and then we would definitely speak on what you should do if, God forbid, or for some reason an incident does occur. So I think that's my own end of it. It's been so lovely chatting with everyone. If you have questions, please type them in the chat box, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Adedoyin. That was very insightful. I hope you learned a thing or two. I know I did. So at this point, if you have any questions, you can leave it in the questions tab. We'll be answering them at the end of the section. So now we'll have Ewere come up and take us through strategies for incident monitoring and management for your business. Ewere, hi. I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. I can.
Okay. Okay. So I'll be talking about strategies for incident monitoring. Issues, and then when you call, how you can manage through those issues to avoid major negative feedback on your business. So incident monitoring is a process of systematically observing, detecting and managing events or incidents that may have an impact on the optimal functioning of a system, organization, or environment. So basically, what this means is that incident monitoring is a combination of tools and processes that you can implement in your business that can ensure that you do not um, face unexpected issues. And then when the unexpected issues come, you also have to identify one of the importance of incident monitoring is that it helps you to meet compliance and regulatory requirements. Now, if you are trying to perform some kind of regulatory compliance and approval for things like ISO, you will definitely be asked for your incident management framework, because your incident management framework explains something around your what we call BCMS, Business Continuity Management System. It explains that when your business has a problem, how do you recover? What are the steps you take to recover from that? And that is usually around your incident management framework and how you will employ that to ensure that you do not your business does not go off, or your business does not become extinct or obsolete. The next is early issue detection. Early issue detection talks about being able to detect issues early before your customers do. Now, if you have a proper monitoring system and incident management system, it means that you can actually detect issues faster and quicker, even before customers can detect it. Now, the advantage this gives you is that you are able to recover faster, and what we call your mean time to recover becomes lesser than when something already happens, your customer is already complaining. That is when you eventually have to start fixing those issues. But when you have early issue detection, you have systems that can help you predict and detect issues. We are already in the world of AI, and AI is already in a lot of tools and services. And if you have some form of AI that can predict a downtime in your system, it means that you can plan ahead of time and make sure that that issue does not occur and cause any form of impedance to your customers. The next is it minimizes downtime. Now, when you have an incident management framework or an incident monitoring system, one of the things you have to do is that you need to have a monitoring system for your infrastructure and your application services. And then the incident monitoring could be a process around it. Now, we talked about early issue detection. The next is minimizing downtime. If you can detect an issue early, it means that you can mitigate or avoid a downtime of ever happening. And this will obviously reduce the downtime you are going to encounter or your customers will encounter in your system. They will have a smooth sailing system and 100% uptime at all times. And then the last is customer safety and trust. Now, all these pillars are all tied together. When I know that your system is reliable at any time I need to use it, let's talk about some of the big businesses that we know globally. I mean, you are not worried of typing a message in WhatsApp and not guaranteed of delivery. You are always guaranteed that it will deliver. Okay. So what you need to do is that you need to make sure that your system is you can detect issues early. You have a process around when you detect an issue, what you need to do. That will help you reduce your downtime you will encounter in your system. And then your customers can trust you. You can say, you know what, use this service. They have 100% uptime. They don't have downtimes. They are always efficient. I mean, we know what happened during the cash trunk in cash trap in Nigeria last year, not cash trunk, sorry, where some banks were not able to transfer money. And some banks came up and they were able to solve that problem. That was one of the things that they did that made them very popular. Okay. And that is what it means to have customer safety and trust. And here at Mono, we also have our services with optimal uptime. And that gives our customers a lot of confidence in our system and trust that, you know what, these guys barely or not don't even have a downtime. And then it means that they can serve us well and they can secure our data properly. Next slide, please. Okay, now we've talked about what monitoring incident monitoring is about, and then why we need it. Now let's talk about what it is to set up incident monitoring. Basically, you need infrastructure tools and services to set up an incident monitoring. So it happens in two ways. You have the technical aspect and then you have the process aspects. Okay, so in most organizations, the observability team is in charge of incident management, but it also depends on what is stipulated in the incident management framework of the organization. So not every organization has a structured observability team. Okay, so that is why it depends on what the incident management framework within the organization defines. So it could be infrastructure team, okay, it could be what some people call DevOps team, it could be any form of team, but there has to be a team or an individual that is in charge of that incident process and incident implementation. If not, it's going to be an existing process that is not attached to an individual or a system that ensures that it runs efficiently. So what are the steps you need to take to set up incident monitoring? The first thing is you need to configure a monitoring tool on the infrastructure. Now, you can never measure what you can never quantify what you don't measure. Okay. Now, if you don't have a monitoring system, you really cannot know if there's an incident in your system. So, for example, if you don't monitor your application or your website, if there's a downtime, you really can never know. The only time you will know is maybe when a customer decides to reach out and says, you know what, I'm trying to make this transaction and I can't make this payment. What is going on? Then you eventually know that there's a downtime. But when you have a monitoring system, that monitoring system can give you feedback intermittently and tell you when there is a downtime. So configuring a monitoring system, using a monitoring tool on your infrastructure is very key. And monitoring cuts across various cadets. You have endpoint monitoring, you have infrastructure monitoring, you have different forms of monitoring, but you need to have some kind of monitoring that gives you feedback about the status of your applications and your services. The next is setting up alerts for system notifications. So apart from just monitoring, you might monitor, but trust me, you're not going to sit on the computer 24/7 to look at what the dashboards are saying or what the numbers are saying. You could work with these monitoring systems and plug in some kind of alerting systems that gives you instant feedback when there's a problem. So a basic example is you have a website called abc.com, and in that website, you basically have customers who come there for shopping, to make payment and all that. When the website goes down, if you monitor the system, it will show in the system that the website is down. But if you don't have an alerting that is plugged to the monitoring, you obviously will not know, because it means that you have to go and check the monitoring system to know what is really going on. But what the alerting does for you is gives you instant feedback. So say, for example, I still have the same website. I plug it to a monitoring system and I plug an alert to it. So an alert could be a push notification to a mobile device, could be a phone call, it could be an SMS, it could be any kind of the instant messaging services, okay, that you could push that notification to. It means that immediately your system has a downtime, you don't only monitor to know, you also push that metric or that data over to your notification system or your notification service. It means that you get an instant alert and you are able to be proactive to solve that problem. Okay, that's why alerting and monitoring are very inseparable. You need to make sure that they go together. The next is assign least privilege for access. So this is more of a proactive activity where you ensure that those who do not need to have access to the system do not have access to the system. And then if you need to give access, you must give the least privilege based on maybe the person's seniority, the person's level in the organization, and what the person needs that data for. So for example, if someone in the marketing team comes and says, you know what, I just want to explore and know how many customers we have on our system, you are not supposed to give that person admin access to, updates and delete data. What the person needs is an aggregate. So you could give the person a read-only aggregate access that can make them to perform that operation. And it could also be time boxed. Okay, you can say, okay, this access is for 30 minutes or for 1 hour or for 20 minutes, and after that period you shut down that access. That's what least privilege talks about. What this does is that it restricts people from data and protects the data at the end of the day. And the next is setting up IDS and IPS. So what IDS and IPS does for you is that they help you to detect and prevent intrusion into your system. Most of the time, what causes incidents is either internally driven or externally driven. Okay, so for IPS and IDS, they are mostly for externally driven incident systems. So when someone tries to hack your system, when someone's trying to get unsolicited access to database, someone is trying to run a DDoS on your machines, on your servers, and make sure that your service has some level of outage. Because unfortunately, during outages are usually the times where malicious actors can get into the data and steal people's data. Okay, so you need to have some kind of IDS or IPS. Okay, there are many vendors out there that you can use. That what they do is that they detect your system. They help you to check from time to time if there's any malicious actor performing an operation. So one of the basic things an IDS can do for you is that if you have unsolicited requests coming to your website or your application or your server, it can tell you, you know what, this set of IP addresses coming to your server are not they are not good IP addresses, they are malicious IP addresses. Then you could blacklist those IP addresses or use some kind of firewall rules to block them from having any form of access to your system. And then intrusion prevention system will just prevent it from happening. So detection checks, prevention prevents. So both of them are used interchangeably because sometimes there are edge cases where you don't want to prevent. Okay, you don't want to go out and prevent. Okay, so the detection can tell you that, you know what, this is the problem. Then it gives you an opportunity to act on it. But the prevention will not give you an opportunity, it just prevents automatically. So it depends on your compliance, it depends on your organization, for you to implement both at the same time or just implement one that you can manually act on. Next slide. Okay, now after all our ways of knowing the importance of incidents, what an incident management system is about, and how to implement it, what if an incident eventually occurs? What do we do? Okay, now there are three incident management process that these phases cover to be carried out before, during, and after an incident. Now, we talked about some of them before, so we'll be talking about during and after an incident. Now, most of the time during an incident is usually what we call the firefighting period, because you are trying to fix the problem, you're trying to understand the problem, and you're trying to make sure you mitigate it at that point in time. So before an incident occurs, some proactive things you need to do, which we've already talked about, is ensure you have your IDS and IPS correctly configured. Okay, it's not just about having an IDS and IPS. You need to update your IDS and IPS. Okay, some level of WAF, also web application firewall that you can use to protect your system, and you update the security controls that come with them. So whatever you configured 3 months ago might become obsolete, or 1 year ago might become obsolete. So it's not just about having them there. You need to regularly make sure that the configurations are correct and they are up to date. Secondly, is to create a backup and recovery system. Now, what this does for you is that in the eventuality of an incident, you have something to fall back on. So if the incident is, the impact is so high, the impact of an incident is so high that data was actually collected or data was deleted. So take, for example, what used to happen with some kind of database engine called Redis a couple of years ago, where people used to hack into Redis and delete the data and drop a Bitcoin address for you to credit. Okay, now that kind of attack, if you do not have any kind of backup for your system, it means that you have lost a lot of data and valuable data. That means that business is going to start from scratch, more or less. Okay, so it means that your data needs to be backed up by all means. No matter what, you must have backup, because if you don't have backup, that can totally ruin a business. So when you have that, you also need to make sure you have a recovery strategy. So one of the basic things I will mention about recovery strategy is, if you are on the cloud and you are backing up data, when you are recovering that data, you should not recover the data in the same environment you backed it up from. Because if one environment is compromised, you don't expect to recover on that same environment, because you are tantamount to falling into that same problem. So what you can do is to back up in another region and restore in another region, so that you shield yourself from any eventuality of that malicious actor attacking your system all over again. And then ensure on call is configured for incident management. Now, what is on call? On call is basically having someone who will always be available in the case of an emergency. So when an incident occurs, a system is attacked, the service is down, or data is lost, or data is stolen, you need to make sure that you have some kind of individual, you have an individual more or less, that can look into that system at that point in time. And the way on call works is that it's usually by rotation, and you have systems that can do this for you. You have Grafana on call, which is an open source service that helps you to configure calendars and individuals that will be available at every point in time. Now, without on call, it means that an incident can occur and no one is there to attend to it. Okay, but when you have on call, it means that someone is just like a doctor on call. Okay, same concept. Okay, so we just borrowed from doctor on call concept here. What this means is when there is an incident, someone is available to review that incident, act on it, and follow the incident management procedure or process of how to handle that incident. Okay, and then the last one here is encrypt and secure your data effectively. You need to make sure that your data is secure and encrypted. Now, if you can encrypt your data, it means that even if data is stolen, that is the incident, you are sure that that data that was stolen is an encrypted data. And most likely, the key to decrypt that data is within your organization. So whoever steals that data is not going to be able to use it for anything. Okay, which are things you can also add to your post-mortem. Maybe when you're talking to your customers or to your users internally and say, you know what, we lost X amount of data, but that data is encrypted, and the whoever stole that data or pulled that data maliciously cannot use that data for anything. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's talk about managing incidents. What happens during an incident? Now, during an incident, these are the things that you can do. First of all, you need to communicate internally with stakeholders about the incident. So at that point in time, you might not be able to give a lot of context, but you can just say, you know what, our server has been hacked. X service and Y service were attacked, and this is what's happening. Okay, that communication is very, very key, because during incidents, trust me, stakeholders are going to be on their hot seats, and they will have a lot of questions to answer from customers, from partners, and so others. So you need to make sure that you communicate that to the stakeholders. Second is plan a damage control. So the incident has occurred. What can we do next? And that is where your incident management process is very important. So apart from the incident happening, the process to manage it needs to be very, very available. A documented process that is approved by the business based on there are different things that can really be in your incident management process, from escalation levels to communication methods to time for escalation to who to escalate to. So many procedures that happen there. Okay, and then investigate and block all possible system loopholes. So that incident occurred based on a security loophole in the system. How did it happen? Where did it come from? Can we quickly block it? Okay, because if someone is pulling data from a large database, it doesn't happen instantly. It takes time for the person to pull that data. So if you are aware of that incident happening, you could actually block whatever access that person has at that point in time and ensure that that malicious actor do not have access anymore. So that could be like one of the damage controls you could do almost immediately to ensure that at that point in time the incident is occurring, you are being proactive, or you are being, should I say reactive? Because it has already happened. It's no longer being proactive. You are being reactive to ensure that it doesn't cause more damage. So what that can do is that it can reduce the impact of that incident. Okay, because incidents come with impact. You measure the impact of an incident and categorize that incident as high, medium, or low. And then you have communicate clearly and early to users. So when there is an issue, you need to have communication with your users. So there's this status page that exists for many providers and many users. Mono, we also have a status page. So that status page is how we communicate to customers that, you know what, this our service has a downtime, it will be back in so time. Or we have a third party that has a downtime and hopefully should be back in so time. What that does is that it gives the customers confidence. We talked about trusting your service. Internet is gone. Okay, so I was talking about managing an incident. So what it means is that you need to have a way of communicating early to users. Some organizations have they use their Twitter handle to communicate downtimes, incidents, and what they are doing about it. I mentioned status pages. So you need to make sure that your users are aware, that you are aware of that issue, not the other way around, of the users telling you there's a problem with your system. And that's where the early detection we talked about is very key. When you detect an incident early, you are the one that will communicate to your customers that, hey, there's an incident, we're aware of the incident, and we are currently looking into that incident. Now, the next is to continue to monitor system until you are guaranteed that the incident is handled. So it's something very important to also do, because incidents, you can never tell how long an incident could last. It all depends on the damage control and the mitigations that have been carried out. If those damage controls and mitigation steps are not carried out properly, an incident can occur for a very long time. If it's about pulling a lot of data, that person can continue to pull that data until it's done pulling all the data and deleting the data. Okay, so even when you put those mitigation steps, okay, that are in the incident management process or the damage control process you decide to take, you need to make sure that that implementation is working as you have deployed it. So let me give a very basic example. A business is into e-commerce, and they are trying to run Black Friday promotion, and they have thousands and millions of users. And some kind of malicious actor says, you know what, this is the time for me to send some kind of what we call DDoS attack to this company and shut down their machines. And then they send millions of requests to your server. And then your server keeps having issues. And for some reason, your IPS or your IDS, okay, your IDS, let's say detection system, is able to detect that, oh, this is the particular IP address that has a problem. You decide to block that IP on your firewall. Now, after blocking that IP, you don't continue business as usual. You have to monitor the system and say, for a few minutes or for a few hours, to be sure that that mitigation works. Because some of these malicious actors can change another IP address and continue what they're doing. Okay, so you need to make sure that you continue to monitor the system until you are guaranteed that that incident is properly handled. If you don't do that, even when you perform the basic mitigation steps, or the damage control steps you tried, it might work temporarily, and that malicious actor can come back and even inflict more damage on your system. Next slide, please. Okay, this is after an incident. So basically, the first thing you need to do after an incident is to write a post-mortem. Okay, a post-mortem or an incident report is very key. Why is a post-mortem very key? Number one, it gives whoever is reading it, or it also gives you, the incident manager, an idea of what happened, how it happened, what was done to fix that thing, and then next steps to ensure it doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so it's more of a continuous learning process, because if you don't have a report, there is a high chance of that thing happening again. And because you don't have a documentation of what was done to fix that problem, you might forget. And then you are running into the same problem and you don't know how to fix that problem anymore. It could be someone who just joined the organization, and the first day the person joined the organization, there's an incident and the person has to fix this incident. And it's something that has happened before. If there's a document, it just makes the person's work very easy. The person reads the document, understands what they need to do, and implements accordingly. Now, share public communication to explain incident and resolution status. Now, this also goes back to communicating with customers, partners, and users. Okay, the status of the incident has to be continuous. Has to be continuous. The communication has to be continuous until the incident is over. Even when the incident is over, you can also send a memo to your customers and to your users and say, you know what, this is what actually happened. This is what our engineers did. This is why it took us so much time. I mean, about some years ago, Meta had a major outage globally. WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, they were all down. And after that, Meta came out and gave a detailed report of what actually happened during that process. AWS also had the same problem a couple of years ago, although it was not a global outage. I think it was an outage on certain services. And they came out to say, you know what, an engineer pushed a code that broke the system. Okay, and this is how we want to ensure it doesn't happen anymore. That communication is very key. It continues to instill confidence in your customers and your users that, you know what, these guys know what they are doing. We are still going to trust them. And then take learnings and mitigate future occurrences. One of the major things that must be in your post-mortem or your incident report is next steps. Next steps mean from what has happened, what are the implementations we are going to deploy to ensure this does not happen anymore. If that's not in the post-mortem report, that report is not complete, because it means that you are prepared for that thing to happen. You are not prepared for that thing to happen again. And when it happens again, you are not sure of how to fix that problem and communicate what happened. Next slide, please. Okay, I think that's all from my side. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I think it's time for questions. Over to you, Martha. Hello, Martha, you are muted.
Hi, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, thank you so much, Ewere, for that section. It was very insightful. Like, I learned a lot and it was well detailed. And so now we'll be going over to the questions. So if you have any questions, you can use the question tab below to leave your questions and we'll answer them live. So I will just give everyone a few minutes to do that while we wait. Any question at all, just leave it in the tab and we'll answer them. Thank you. Again, you can leave your questions in the tab, or I'm guessing we all got all our answers and we don't have any questions. But in the meantime, I'll just give it a few minutes and see. All right. I'm guessing there's no questions, and thank you so much to everyone for joining the session. So it's very lovely to have you guys here. We really appreciate it, and I hope you learned a thing or two, or you find all the information we shared very helpful, and it can help you better manage your customers' data and learn better ways to like protect their details as well. So we'll be sharing a replay of this on our socials, and you would also receive a replay in your email in case you want to like go over the details again on your own. And if you also have any questions at all, you can send us an email at support@mono.co, and I will make sure that Adedoyin or Ewere answers your questions. And thank you guys for joining, and hope you have a great evening. Bye.